Welcome to Life Unscripted, Adulting Uncovered, the podcast for anyone out here doing their best to grow, heal, and not totally lose it in the process. I'm your host, Brennan, and if you ever felt like the only adult still figuring it out, don't worry, you're not alone. This is the place for you. Let's stop pretending and start talking.
Guys, welcome back to another episode. Have you ever had a friend or a family member or just somebody you knew, and you just watch them make the same mistake over and over and over again? Maybe it was the same toxic relationship, or it's the same bad habit where they have these habits that just create self-sabotage, where things are starting to go really well for them, and then they get in there, they have some sort of conniption fit, and they just muck it all up. And you see these patterns occur over and over, but maybe you notice them in yourself. And eventually you start to wonder, well, how much pain does someone need to go through before they finally decide to change? And I know that there's this myth in life where pain makes you stronger, right? And that as humans, we must endure pain because on the other end, we will become stronger. And of course, there's some truth to that, right? If we go through a very challenging situation, like maybe a loss of a loved one, right? And we're able to make it out and still function as an adult, we see that, hey, that was a challenging situation and I made it through that, right? But when we're talking about relationships and development and self-development and emotional maturity, pain, I think, should be minimized and growth should be maximized. And sometimes pain doesn't change people. Awareness does. And so many people go through the same painful cycles for years and decades and maybe even longer. Maybe it's the same relationship patterns where they keep choosing the same type of person, but someone in a different body, a different face, different name, same ending, same problems. And they do that because this type of dynamic is familiar to them. And they connect at a nervous system level, and they're probably subconsciously not even noticing that it's happening. Or maybe it's someone who makes the same financial mistakes where they get to money and they spend all the money and they're broke again. And they haven't just done this once or twice. They've done this 300 times throughout their whole life, and it is a pattern that they have of poor financial management. Or maybe they have the same emotional reactions to situations where when things are going well, they get really scared in a relationship and they just do something to just screw it up. They pick a fight or do something that's unrepairable, and the person is like, well, I'm not dealing with this, right? And they lose this person that was potentially a good fit for them. Pain alone, it doesn't transform anyone. It just repeats the lesson. If pain alone transformed people, the people who were in the worst situations would be the best people. They would be the most productive, strongest people. And that is certainly not the case. Growth only begins when someone stops blaming the world around them and they start examining themselves. And that's where things get uncomfortable, because pain is something that happens to you, but reflection is something that you choose. And two people can go through the exact same heartbreak or the exact same failure, the exact same loss, the exact same disappointment, and they can have two different perspectives on the situation. One person will say, "Oh, why does this always happen to me?" Or this keeps happening to me. The other person will say, "What's my role in this? What role did I play to end up in this same situation again?" The second person is asking a question that most people avoid. And they avoid this question because this question requires work. And it requires you to accept that as a human, you might not be this perfect person. You might be flawed. Reflection forces you to confront things that most people spend their whole lives running from. Your patterns, your blind spots, your fragile little ego. The human mind is really good at protecting our fragile little ego. It would rather protect your identity than admit that you are wrong. And you know what? I have met in the past 2 months, two separate women that do not know each other, and both of them admitted that they have past trauma or pain from a past relationship or an ex. And the messed up part is neither of them want to do anything about it. Right? And they both admit that it's causing problems in their relationships, and they do see their patterns showing up and causing them to get stuck, but yet they don't want to deal with their past. And both of them said, it's way easier for me to just smush this down and not deal with it. And that's sad to hear, because we often don't want to deal with our past pains. If you don't deal with them as you get it later in life into your 40s and 50s and you have all this unresolved trauma, it makes it very, very difficult for you to have equitable relationships give and receive love in a healthy way, deal with conflict, show up and try to understand people. All the things we talk about on this channel, it makes it very difficult to do that when you're carrying this trauma and baggage from all your past relationships that you haven't dealt with. And many times people start to create stories to make them feel better. You know, a very common one is, all my exes are crazy. All my exes are crazy. I just end up with the worst of the worst people. Or some people say, well, people screw me over. Everyone fucks me over. You know what? The other day, I was in Home Depot. It was last week. I was in Home Depot, and I was talking to the girl who was helping me. I was asking her about the theft in Home Depot, because to get the power tool that I needed, it was all under lock and key, and I had to wait for these people. And so she finally shows up, and so I made a joke about how they were just keeping these things in, you know, like it was a bank. And we were talking about theft, and she said that people steal anything there. And I said, it's so odd to me, I guess, as someone who doesn't steal things, I don't think about that. I just go in and pay for what I'm buying and I leave. And she said, well, my ex fucked me over and stole everything. And I don't know why the lady at Home Depot felt compelled to tell me her life story, but she did. And she told me that her ex fucked her over and stole everything. And I don't know what quote unquote everything means to her, but anyways, I said, he did. And she said, yeah. I said, well, how long did you know this guy? She said, well, we lived together. I dated him for a year and a half. And I said, well, there had to be some sort of inclination early on that this person would steal from you. And she said, you know what? Looking back, I guess I should have known when he told me that he was stealing people's packages from their porches. And I said, yep, that would have been a good red flag. I said, when did you find that out? She said, about 1 or 2 months in. And I said, but you looked past it because you liked him. And she said, yes, I did. And there's the thing. She said, people screw me over, but she wasn't really willing to have some awareness that maybe early on she made a decision that made her culpable in this messed up relationship and choosing someone that wasn't a bad fit for her. You know, that's one example. And other people just say, well, I just have bad luck. I just have so much bad luck picking people. And these are the narratives or the stories that we create because it makes people feel better. And these stories protect us from discomfort, but they also keep us stuck in the same position in life. Because if I use the example of the person at Home Depot, if she doesn't have some awareness for where she made a bad decision, and if she doesn't do something to not make that bad decision again, she will be stuck in the same cycle, picking these poor guys, and her narrative of people always screw me over will continue to be a theme in her life. Self-awareness is going to be the opposite of ego protection. It's going to be the opposite of giving you the benefit of thinking that people are always screwing you over. And it's the moment that you step back and say, wow, maybe this pattern isn't the world and all the people around me. Maybe, just maybe, this pattern is me. Maybe I am an active participant in this life that I'm living. And that realization, it can hurt. But the good news is that realization is also very powerful. Because once you see this pattern, you finally have the ability to change it. You get the opportunity to change your life and to change your decisions so that you can have a different outcome moving forward. Most people don't change when things get painful because we see people doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. They go back to the same person that hurts them. They date the same person who is just like the previous person that emotionally destroyed them. They change when the cost of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of changing. So if the fear of me having to deal with the pain that my ex left me with becomes less than the pain that I'm experiencing by continuing to date and choose the same poor relationships becomes stronger, then I will affect change in my life. And then that moment, it usually comes when we finally see our life clearly and we finally see what is happening around us. And they realize this isn't just happening to them. They have been an active participant in this life that they're living. And that realization right there is the turning point. And the cool part is that's when change starts to happen. But the sad part is not everyone reaches it. But the people who do, they start to grow in ways that they never, ever did before. So if you feel stuck in a cycle right now, if you have a friend that you're watching spiral, maybe the question isn't why does this keep happening to them or to me? Maybe the question is, what is this experience trying to teach me or them that I haven't been willing to see yet? What am I supposed to learn from this experience so that I can stop making this decision going forward? Pain, it doesn't automatically make you wiser. honest reflection and self-awareness does. So guys, I'm going to end there. My name is Brennan. This is Life Unscripted, Adulting Uncovered. Growth, it isn't about avoiding pain and running from your past trauma. It's about being brave enough to learn from it and face it head on so that it doesn't keep following you. Remember, take care of yourself, keep showing up even when you don't want to, and I will catch you on the next one. Take care.